Now, Senator Culleton, it was you who spotted this discrepancy. It was you who spotted the discrepancy in the High Court rules, which the High Court Rules Committee has now acted upon. I might say, since those rules were promulgated in 2004, there have been 16 distinguished Australian jurists sit on the High Court, including 2 Chief Justices. And I must congratulate you, Senator Culleton, on being the first person to spot the problem.
Good morning everyone, Rod Culleton doing a video from Perth down at the beautiful Swan River. I wanted to take this opportunity now that we're running into an election and now that the government is in caretaker mode and now that I'm not constrained to privileges. And I just wanted to let the Australian people know a very important announcement, and to know that whilst I've been a senator in exile, I have not stopped working for the people of Western Australia, and I certainly haven't stopped working for the people of Australia. What I'm about to tell you is needs to be told. As an Australian, as a proud Australian, whether warts and all, it has to be told. And that is what I saw whilst I was in Parliament, and what my great team, who are the best cave divers in the world, constitutional experts who took the time and held their breath and went deep down into the archives of Parliament and found what the problem is, in a sense found the short in the wiring, where it was shorting out right under the chassis, and what is actually wrong with Australia. This is not an inference, this is an undeniable fact. And what happened, and what I'm about to show you, is why Australia has lost its way since 1973. And I will make a consolidated speech. I wanted to certainly show you one of the reports which will be shown, and that's it there. That's one of the 4 reports. It's the 1988 Constitutional Report. And I ask you to go and challenge any politician, any person in the legal fraternity about this report, and ask them to rebut what's in the report. What I have done is send a team over to London. I have made sure that what we have found and what we've had knowledge of, and what I was actually unable to bring to the table, and because of privilege, is the facts, and they cannot be disputed. And Australia cannot keep going on the way it's going. So what I'm going to do is read my statement to the Australian people prior to this election, which is really important, and that all the public must know, and I'll leave it to you. I have done my best. I have come through some horrid times. I have kept my family together, but I've kept straight. I've kept under my oath, and I've kept fighting for the Australian people, because I know what I saw was the problem. And I've always said the tail shafts come off the diff, and here it is. And I ask you, as all proud Australians, to take this time and listen to my statement, because I tell you what, I will give anyone, a proud pat on the back or an elephant stamp, whatever you want, if you can go and find Queen of Australia, because we haven't found her, and I'm sure you won't. But anyway, let's see. I start off today with this important announcement. Today I intend to impress upon you a theft of a fundamental right that belongs to us all as Australians. And that theft was orchestrated by the very people entrusted with protecting that right. That right is known by the term of the Commonwealth, which in itself means and refers to the authority of the people of Australia to unite as one people under a law system fought for thousands of years that protected us. Without this law system imported from the United Kingdom, we are all vulnerable to be less protected by possibility lawless. What I'm about to show you may be difficult to appreciate or understand, but it is needed to be known and acted upon for well-being of every one of us in this great land, that we do not squander what we have been left to us by those that understood that a great society is not a happenstance, but one that is built an organised set of laws and rules that can and be relied on for good government. This is a prerequisite of withstanding against the evil forces of corruption and the descent into anarchy. The United Kingdom has given us a law system that includes the laws of the Bible, the Magna Carta, the Bill of Rights, and the ability to petition the monarch for the denial or abuse of our rights. And those Mosaic laws that the Queen is beholden to uphold in all of her laws and in all of her courts, as she has sworn to provide and promised to do. The force of that promise resides in the power that belongs to her, through us, that the law-making houses, the courts and the police exercise, that they, under this law and system, have no other power than the Queen, and that its limitations on power. This is a law system is known as the Crown, and the personal representation of that power is the Queen. As through the arrangements of the 1900, the Crown colonies united into one self-ruled dominion with the protection of the Crown, and that arrangement is enshrined in law under the name Commonwealth of Australia. The term Commonwealth needs special attention with reference to Australia. The single word that qualifies our Australia is significant in that it by itself represents the authority of the Australian people, and in this distinction is the authority of government. It holds us, the people of Australia, as the authority and master of government, as we individually give up part of our inherent right to govern ourselves individually, to govern ourselves as an organised group, respecting our individual and private rights as a well-organised, respectful society. We have inherited this, and we are in the mindful to the hands of this on to protect our children and those after them. It is our legacy as those who have handed it to us, as sometimes have fought hard. It is ours in a world where the rule of law is not so well provided and applied. But we have a challenge of great importance before us that is required to be confronted, that is regarding the event of 1973, and the scheme to defraud us as Australians has been going on this day by those who hold the lever of power in this land of Australia. That now is the focus of what I have to say on the Commonwealth and the corruption of the law in 1973 by the then government Gough Whitlam, when the government came in under the slogan, "It is time." Under an act called the Statute of Law Revision Act 1973, the Whitlam government promoted the removal of the terms of our laws. That included the Commonwealth and the Crown. This was not some isolated, insignificant change by removal, but a wholesome change in violation of the Constitution of the Commonwealth itself. An act of treachery and sedition that went mostly unspoken and certainly not made known to the Australian people. It is well known how to sell it to the population, nor to the courts in general, as it was totally contrary of the law that governed the Parliament of the Commonwealth. To that end, attempted to avoid the problem by renaming the Parliament of the Commonwealth as the Australian Parliament, as one distinct and separate to the provisions. In order to avoid the inconsistencies to another law that identifies the sovereign for representation by the Governor-General, a new title for the Queen to adopt was made at the time to remove any reference that made the Commonwealth under the Queen of the United Kingdom. The Queen of Australia was enacted. So to recap on the events for clarity, the Whitlam government removed the term depicting the people's authority, the Commonwealth, from the laws of the Commonwealth, removed the reference to the Crown, as well as substituted the name of Parliament to remove the term Commonwealth by creating a title of the Queen for adoption to be separate to that of the Crown. In short, the Whitlam government staged revolution to change the form of government in Australia and mounted a coup to subvert the people's authority, all in a plain sight without hardly a word from the court and lawyers. The question begs, were there the high of the times, LSD and acid? How did this escape their attention, since the law of the Commonwealth requires all courts and judges to be bound to the contract of the Commonwealth, the Queen and the Crown? Some did make the objection, as the High Court in 1974, the Australian Law Journal. As the High Court was a creature of the Constitution, the Australian Parliament remade the High Court under a Domestic Act in 1979. Given that the Federal Parliament removed the Commonwealth and Crown since 1973, attention went to the state parliaments and continued under the Crown, as the law required for a Commonwealth. Arrangements were then made under Labor governments in each of the states to now collude in a scheme that was supposedly the Constitution allowed but did not, to remove the Crown to each of their parliaments and courts. The set of laws passed by the state parliaments requested the Australian Parliament to pass the Australia Act of 1986, amounting to another revolution to change from the former government without public notice and without Her Majesty's assent, as we shall discover. Now we come to a report made by a Constitutional Committee of 1988 that identifies many constitutional and illegal roadblocks created by the events that I have described in the brief, and that is known in the law as nonsense. This tragic comedy of errors was identified by the first and final Constitutional Report 1988 in many of its parts, but significantly by promoting bills that called for a referendum recognising the Queen of Australia and another for changing the oath of allegiance for parliamentarians to that Queen of Law in the schedule to the Constitution requires the Queen of the Crown. In effect, the report was identifying the constitutional inconsistencies and admitting that the attempted coup of the People's Authority, along with the several attempt revolutions, were in fact illegal and of no lawful effect and application. How preposterous and obscene to deny the authority of the Australian people, the master of government. How utterly unlawful was it to deny the Queen's authority and application to the Constitution in protecting the Commonwealth of Australia. It is totally and utterly disgusting. What is apparent, apart from the fact that the Commonwealth prevails, as there can be no change of form of government without the people say so, is the fact that no power exists within the Queen in places power of the people is through her. The Queen of Australia not only offends the second clause of the Constitution, identifying the sovereign, but as Federal Parliament was also identified as not having the power to make that title or any title for the Queen. The Australia Act 1986, relying on assent of the Queen of Australia, in fact did not receive assent, as the title of Queens just did not exist. It's all hogwash and a scam on the Australian people to fool us, and certain persons in power are hell-bent on promoting this hoax, perpetuating the theft of the Commonwealth. What I have prayed for to the Queen and Lords is for the restoration of the law of the Commonwealth for our right and well-being, a duty of the Queen's ministers in the United Kingdom, and for which the Court of the Lords must attend. A series of documents is a bound set and has now been dispatched to prominent persons to regard the Queen's role in the Commonwealth of Australia as by law of the United Kingdom and restore her rightful title of application to same. I cannot expect that Her Majesty will be denied of her coronation promise and serve the people of Australia. God save the Queen. And can I say this to all Australians? This is the facts. And it is so important that you vote for Great Australian Party. We have the best constitutional experts in history. And we are there to bring back the restoration of the Commonwealth. our rights, and it's our duty. Either you want to keep and remain Australians, or you want to become servants to another foreign power. Bring back Australia. You have a duty. It is your legacy to your children and future generations. Stand with me and my team behind the great Australian Party. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this important announcement. And at any time, we have a copy of all the 1988 constitutional reports, and I have paid for a summary which clearly shows that there are no powers and there are no law. We are lawless, and that is why we're losing our great nation, and that is why the people are struggling, and that is why we're not, as beneficiaries to our asset, are being deprived, and we've got poverty very much alive in this great nation. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Authorised by Ian Nelson for the Great Australian Party, PO Box 8242, South Perth 6151, Western Australia.